welcome in to a Civilization 6 Civilization review video. We do these every so often on the channel. When I finish a game over at the Twitch channel, you can follow along live. We play Civilization 6 on Twitch at twitch.tv/madishmoose every Monday night. Once we're done with the game, I like to go over kind of the strategy, my thoughts on the civilization. And today we have kind of a special one because this civilization is the first civilization from the Leader Pass that I have played. I know Leader Pass has been out for a long time. I was busy kind of doing other things and catching up on other games that I wanted to play with old leaders. But we played the Age of Steam Victoria, England, and I have to say, what a bunch of fun. Is she possibly overpowered and maybe needs to be tamed down a little bit? Maybe. We'll talk a little bit about that and just how potent Age of Steam Victoria can be. And I think it's maybe for a combination of reasons that I'll go into throughout the video as to why you can be so effective with Age of Steam Victoria. If you would like to catch more Civilization 6 content, more 4X content, I got a lot of Humankind videos. We're going to start a new Humankind Let's Play in the near future. If you'd like to catch more of that, make sure you hit that subscribe button and the notifications are turned on. We release videos on this channel every Sunday afternoon. We'd love to see you back for more of our content. We also have several other Civilization 6 review videos out there if you're interested in more Civilization 6 takes from me. With that, let's jump into the game and see how this one transpired with Age of Steam Victoria. Here we are, our capital city of London. And what you will immediately notice is it is turn 221, which is the turn immediately following our victory. We have a beautiful map, and you can see the waters around our coast are lush due to our beautiful mausoleum of Halicarnassus, and we have some great things going on in our capital to start with. A turn 220 win for me playing on Deity is pretty good. I usually finish games anywhere between turn 200 and turn 250. I'm not somebody who likes to necessarily fully on min-max and try to go for the lowest possible turn victories. I like to win in a decent number of time, but I really do like to kind of optimize my empire, not on a win condition level. I like to optimize my empire kind of generically so that we're doing well across the board and have a very healthy empire, not just focused, hard focused on getting to end game and win conditions as fast as possible. So just to have a little glimpse into my kind of Civilization 6 play style, I'm not hard speed, straight down the path to a victory condition. I will almost always have a victory condition in mind. In this particular game, that was a science victory, and that really lends itself to Age of Steam Victoria. But because of what Victoria can do, particularly Age of Steam, you really could take her civ anywhere you wanted as far as win conditions. The focus of Age of Steam Victoria is on production, and production can take you wherever you want to go, basically, right? And so really you could go for any win condition, but it's optimized around a science victory, I feel like. So turn 220 science victory with Age of Steam Victoria. Let's jump in and take a look at Age of Steam Victoria and some of the things that might make her incredibly powerful. Here are the descriptors of the features and abilities for Age of Steam Victoria. Again, the English Empire, so it's the Age of Steam part that is unique to the Leader Pass version of Victoria here, and the rest of it kind of flows. But what you will immediately notice as we start to go through this is the Age of Steam Victoria trait meshes with the rest of the pieces that England already had, and more so than any of the other kind of English variations that you can play as far as leaders. That is, I think, what really makes Age of Steam Victoria really good, is because there is a lot of just continuity between what Age of Steam brings to you and what the rest of England brings to you as far as just their standard traits. Age of Steam reads as follows: 10% production in cities for every industrial zone building in that city. Yikes. that can multiply incredibly quickly because you've got, what, 3 at least, typically, buildings in your industrial zones. That's possibly a 30% production bonus in every city. And that you're not getting, and that cobble that together with other bonuses such as cards that increase your industry adjacency and different things like that. You're going to start building up a really, really potent industrial civilization. And to top that, you also get +2 production to all strategic resources. Late game, even mid game, that's negligible probably at best. But early game, when you're unlocking your horses, when you're unlocking your iron, and you're getting mines and pastures on those strategic resources, and you're getting +2 production out of them, that's big. Because early game, that little 2 production that you're getting extra off of one of those tiles that's already yielding you some pretty substantial production is going to make a huge impact in the early game. So whereas in most games of Civilization, you might be putting off discovering strategics, maybe because of some district placements that you want to make sure you get down before those strategics are discovered and lock that tile up for you, right? If you're playing with no mods. You actually kind of want to know where those are and almost plan around them because you want those pastures or those mines, particularly on your horses and on your iron, early in the game when you're playing Age of Steam Victoria, because that +2 production is going to make a huge difference in your city during the opening early portions of the game. And on any city that you build thereafter, even if you're putting down a early mid-game city, one of your late settles possibly, talking like turn 100 to 125-ish or something like that, if you're putting down one of those late cities, that city is going to benefit immensely from settling next to a strategic resource. You can kind of plan that out, build next to some strategics, boost them up, and then all of a sudden that +2 production is going to help you get your opening buildings out faster, going to help you get your opening districts in that city out faster. So your growth potential becomes really huge just on that +2 production alone, let alone the fact that you're later on going to end up with something like +30% production in any city that has an industrial zone in it because of the buildings you're putting down. So the Age of Steam portion, highly focused on production, in fact, exclusively focused on production, but has benefits early game all the way through to late game. Because you're talking about 2% production early on your strategics that's getting you that early game bonus. And then you're talking about the 10% each time that you have a building in your city. So you're boosting that because the percentage-based increase, you're getting to boost a larger number every time as you build one of those buildings. So it has huge value all the way through late game. That's something that's oftentimes a little bit different than what any different leader or civ brings to the table in this game. A lot of the times a bonus or an ability that a civilization has is useful for a particular period of time. And that's where you have to maximize using it. And then it maybe falls off either, early game, mid game, or late game. Age of Steam Victoria, yes, the strategic resource production is like early game focused benefit, but that percentage-based increase on your industrial zones, that's going to be great throughout the game, and in fact, probably even favors later game, right? Because you're boosting it up to that 30%. Age of Steam, very powerful. Workshop of the World, which is the England kind of base trait, just pairs so nicely with this. Iron and coal mines accumulate 2 more resources per turn. That's going to be nice because we want to be working those anyway. 100% production towards military engineers can be very, very nice if you're cranking those out, especially if you're putting railroads and different things down to move people around. They get +2 charges. You could really make use of military engineers. We did not particularly in our game, but you could definitely make use of them with this, right? Buildings that provide additional yields when powered receive +4 of that yield. That's a big number as well. This Workshop of the World trait is just potent. +20% production towards industrial zone buildings. So now you start to see that real synergy between Age of Steam and Workshop of the World with England. You get +10 production for cities for every industrial zone building you have in the city, but you also, because you're England, you get +20% production towards your industrial zone buildings. So now you're getting your buildings out faster, which is getting your production up higher, which then gets you to the next building, which then you could, the snowball, the steamroll, if you will, is really, really impressive when you start to get those industrial zones in and you start to really move on getting those production numbers up really high. Harbors also increase your strategic resource stockpile by +10. This can be nice, particularly for science victories, right? And this is where England maybe starts to have a lean or a bend towards that, because increased strategic resource stockpiles are very nice, particularly when you're talking about things like aluminum or late game things that can get you faster projects and things towards your space races. The Sea Dog, of course, is a very nice unit. We didn't get to use them very much in our game just because of how everything kind of played out, but it replaces the Privateer, has a chance to capture defeated enemy ships, which is pretty cool. You could build up your navy pretty quickly just by going out and having fights and trying to capture those units rather than having to build them exclusively. So that's a pretty nice trait that the Sea Dog has. The Royal Navy Dockyard, I think it's fine. Like, it's good. And this is where maybe, like, England, maybe, like the Royal Navy Dockyard is good. Like, you get plus loyalty if you're building on a foreign continent. We didn't actually, I think, ever build on a foreign continent. Our continents were very strange in this game. I'll show them to you here in a moment. We didn't get to really take advantage of that. So, and even that +2 gold, like, we didn't really, so... Yeah, we got Royal Navy Dockyards out there, and yes, they gave us that movement increase and things like that. We were primarily using them because they were a harbor replacement, and we were able to get down, harbors for the lighthouse for food and for different, production bonuses when you get into kind of the dockyards and different things like that further on down the line when you're putting in your shipyards and things like that increase your production. So we made good use of them, but the Royal Navy Dockyard, and maybe there's different opinions out there, you can let me know in the comments. I found the Royal Navy Dockyard to be kind of a so-so unique district or unique building for England, but it didn't really matter because we were going to be focused on industrial zones anyway because of Age of Steam and Workshop of the World, right? So those are the traits and abilities that Age of Steam Victoria brings to the table. Now, you can see here in London, we have a 232 production in London alone. And to keep in mind, London is primarily, like, if you look at it, like, we're working mostly water tiles. And that's maybe one of the conundrums that you run into when you're playing England, particularly Age of Steam Victoria, is you're kind of inclined, and in fact, you're going to have a natural, like, affinity to being on the coast because of the Royal Navy Dockyard. That lends to probably working more on the side of being in the water, which not necessarily the biggest production numbers that you're going to produce from working tiles. Now, of course, late game, it looks really nice, and we've got mausoleums, so we've got a ton of great yields on our tiles, particularly in our capital, and so that's getting boosted really nicely. But if you think of trying to increase the Age of Steam, right, the percent production in a city getting increased, that doesn't necessarily, like, lend itself towards being on the water, per se, but you can see what the bonuses are there, right? So where we're getting it from resources, we're getting some from trade, we're getting a bunch from our districts, plus from our campus, because I think that's just based on the era thing that we picked, right? And then we've got the buildings that are getting multiplied out. Our work tiles getting a 66, so we're actually getting some pretty decent for our work tiles. Then we've got additional amenity because we've got very happy citizens. And then you've got that from modifiers, that plus 40% from modifiers. So we must have 4 buildings. You get 4 buildings? It's by number off. No, we've got 3 buildings, so we're getting another 10% from somewhere, right? Because we've got a factory, a workshop, a factory, and an oil power plant in our industrial zone. That's 30% just on the Age of Steam, and then we're getting another 10% on modifiers from elsewhere, right? But again, big numbers when you start adding all of those up, and your baseline, even your baseline, right, in your district is really nice depending on how you get to build those. So again, very, very interesting to play Age of Steam Vicky, particularly with an industrial zone bend. Now, you'll notice, of course, the flood barriers everywhere. That is because when you play Age of Steam Vicky, you're probably putting an industrial zone in every single one of your cities, for the most part. Why? Because her whole kit centralizes around industrial zones. A lot of the times when you're playing Civ 6, you might not really be building industrial zones at a really big pace, depending on kind of what you're going for. With Science Victories, you have a little bit more of a bend towards that. With Age of Steam Vicky, I think Age of Steam Vicky might be one of the only civilizations I've played where I built an industrial zone in every single city that I had. There's been a couple more, and in fact, I'm playing a Babylon game right now where I'm actually focusing production pretty hard, and I think I've got production industrial zones in all of those cities. But you don't necessarily have to have industrial zones. In fact, there are people that swear against them in the community, and so... But for Age of Steam Vicky, if you ever wanted to like do a game that's focused on production, I mean, she's the one to play because she's going to get you ridiculous amounts of that. Of course, that comes with watch your climate change. Look at how much we're polluting compared to everybody else. It's completely ridiculous, right? We're the blue here. We're polluting an incredible amount. Like more than half of the world's pollution is being produced by us. Like you can see the numbers are just absolutely astronomical because we've got so many industrial zones and coal power plants and different things like that we're just steamrolling through. So do be aware that you will have to keep that flood barrier tech in mind as you progress through the game because you're getting all of those pieces in play. Now, for our biggest city, actually ended up being our only non-coastal city for our biggest productions. You can see how our empire kind of spread. We had a nice wonder start with Cerro de Patasi here, so you can see that we left all those as nice workable tiles. We expanded down here, and here's where you see the benefit of those resources, right? Our opening city, we researched iron very quickly, and we're able to get an iron mine down. That gave us that +2 production right away in our capital to allow us to start cranking production very quickly there. Second city here in Liverpool, same thing. We have that iron right here to be able to work right away with that extra production. And so you start to see a lot of boosts early game when you settle next to a strategic resource. You get that city up and running much more quickly with that little bonus, right? You, of course, are looking for rivers, so we had some nice rivers. We had our nicest river with a beautiful floodplain came in here between Plymouth and Stoke-upon-Trent. And this floodplain became kind of our central point for production in our city, in our empire. Of course, we have Stoke-upon-Trent directly in the center of our continent. We didn't end up getting to settle the whole thing because we got forward settled by the Kree up here. We ended up maintaining a peaceful relationship, mainly because we realized we had stuff to do down here. We actually ended up settling this island right here, ended up being productful. We got a Petra city in kind of late. It was kind of a weirdly late Petra city. That also ended up being in Tundra, so this was kind of a fun city that bridged the gap between these two seas, which was also handy for moving units and things like that. As we also ended up getting down here, particularly for oil, we ended up grabbing a ton of oil and resources down on these islands down here and in York as well. We were grabbing, again, oil, niter. I think we were short on niter as well. So those were pieces of the puzzle as we kind of expanded out. So if you zoom out, you kind of see how our empire kind of ended up expanding out across the way. Obviously, Auckland was a huge play for us. We did have suzerainty in Auckland because that gets us shallow water tiles +1 production and +1 when you reach the industrial era. That's enormous. If you have Auckland in your game and you're playing Age of Steam Victoria, that's kind of your big sell. I mean, that's huge, right? Because we have that bend towards the coast because of the Royal Navy dockyards and just the natural tendency of England to be closer to coast. So when you're trying to blend industrial zones with harbors, which is primarily what we were trying to do, right? Industrial zone harbors were kind of our focal point. Typically, first get a harbor in to get that food and to make sure we get the lighthouse and a trade route and things like that. Then get your industrial zone in so we can boost up production on everything else we're putting out of that city. That was kind of what we were going with. And then, of course, because we were going for science, we were also trying to find decent campus placement. And typically, if you're playing a coastal-based civ, you're not necessarily looking for mountain or forest adjacency. You're actually looking for that reef adjacency, right? So we were able to get some decent campuses just building off of these reefs. You can see we have 2 campuses stacked here that ended up being pretty valuable to us just off of this one reef. And you'll find that kind of throughout the empire. Where are we pulling our science from? That. And you can see up here in the top corner, or here in our list of stats right here, we're pulling in 2,236 science per turn at turn 221. That's a lot. I mean, the D&D AI stands no chance against that, right? Once you get up to that level. We also ended up pulling in over 1,000 culture per turn. A lot of that has to do, right, with suzerainities. We have quite a few suzerainities. And I believe we also have Kilwa somewhere here. Yeah, there's Kilwa, which is obviously getting us some really crazy bonuses. If you're not aware or need a reminder, Kilwa is very powerful. One of the things that's nice about playing a very production-focused civilization is you can build wonders pretty rapidly. when you're in a competition to get a wonder built against the AI or against another player you're playing against, when you have more production than them, maybe you're falling behind maybe a little bit in science or something, but when you can outproduce them to build those wonders, you end up getting a lot of them in your empire. Back to the river valley, which I got distracted from, and Stoke-upon-Trent here. We ended up building this amazing complex with aqueducts, with dams. We've got multiple industrial zones placed here. This one in particular, which is the one in that city, is a plus 12 industry zone, right? Is beautiful, like adjacencies here with the dam, as well as the other pieces, the aqueduct, and then we have River Valley in this city as well. We also ended up with Chichen Itza in this city. We ended up chopping out quite a bit of the rainforest, but you can see we're getting some decent production, and Chichen Itza's nice in a city, especially a rural city or a high production city, because you can lumber mill all those forests and the production is still there, along with your culture, right? So big numbers from that. And you can see in Stoke-upon-Trent, we have 519 industry in that city alone. That is a large number that we're putting out on Stoke-upon-Trent. So we're just being able to kind of maximize our use of production across the board. That allowed us to get, obviously, our spaceports and our projects out very, very quickly. Once we got to that point in the game and we were building spaceports and launching things, it went very, very fast. The other thing that I almost always play with secret societies on, so you can see from a governor perspective, we did choose to take owls in this particular game. That was in order to maximize our ability to get trade routes, right? So you start to see where we were pairing our harbors with our commercial hubs. That is because, right, owls gets you access at the second or third level, I can't remember which it is, to their special building, and their special building allows you to get an extra trade route out of a commercial hub, which normally you can't, right? Normally you get, if you have a lighthouse, the market does not get you the extra trade route, but owls allows you to get an extra trade route out of that. Effectively, if you build your cities, right, and you got both those districts in, you're doubling the amount of trade routes you could potentially have out of each of your cities, because you're going from 1 to 2 effectively. And that's really potent as well, because again, if you're playing a coastal civ, now all of a sudden you're getting a ton of trade routes out, and we had 22 total trade routes that are going out into the world, both to boost our science as we were trying to go for that science victory, as well as the production potentially early game. If you're sending those internal trade routes early game, you're going to get a good production boost out of those as well. So if you weren't playing with secret societies, it's still gonna be valuable. We just ended up making like a ton of gold because we had a bunch of trade routes out. You get a lot of the, all the different pieces. Industry, if you're doing internal, food, if you're doing internal, but gold and other things if you're doing the other side of things, right? So when you're doing international trade routes, a lot of value to trade routes. If you can get more, why not? That's why we went owls in this particular game. We were tempted to maybe do Sanguine Pact and get some vampire castles out to like build up some big numbers, but it just made more sense, again, playing a coastal-based civ that wants to trade more than likely, that we just optimized those trade routes and were able to kind of buy what we needed as well. So across the board, Age of Steam Victoria, incredibly powerful, super potent civilization, heavily focused on industrial zones. If you haven't gotten the opportunity to play Age of Steam Victoria yet, I would strongly encourage you to take a shot at it, particularly if maybe you don't play with industrial zones a lot. Slap an industrial zone down in all of your cities and watch your production just expand off of the map. It's a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun doing it as well with the going for a science victory, because I think it really lended to that, right? You get your projects out, you get your spaceports down really fast, all your projects that are, both for launching all your projects, but also when you've got that final project out and you're launching your rockets to be able to boost your time on that project. Obviously, high production goes into play there when you're trying to produce those projects out and get your cities up and running. So a lot of fun playing Age of Steam Victoria. I would rate this as probably one of the most powerful civs that I've played. I haven't played all of them, but I've played a lot of the civs in Civ 6. There's like 75 odd some of them now. It's hard actually to play all of them unless you commit a ton of time to the game, which a lot of people have. A lot of people have played all of them through A to Z challenges and things like that. I'm working my way through. I keep playing different ones all the time. So I've got some pretty fun games on the Twitch channel. We've got a Babylon community challenge game with tech shuffle on and things right now. I'm going to do a Portugal One City challenge here in the near future on the Twitch channel. So all of those review videos will also come to YouTube once I've completed those games. Next week, we have another Civilization 6 review video on Tamar, my first time playing Tamar of Georgia. We had a pretty good time. Went for a very, very different strategy than this one. We'll talk through that next week. Thank you so much for watching this video. I am excited to bring you a couple more Civilization 6 pieces before we jump into our next Let's Play series, which will be back on the Humankind side of things. I also have a couple of interesting one-off Humankind videos to get you as well on actually losing a game of Humankind, which happened to me for the first time ever just a little while ago. So next week, more Civilization 6, but Humankind upcoming on the channel as well. If you like the content, make sure you hit that thumbs up button and that you're subscribed. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next week.